Hello everybody, Mike aka the Magico13 here with episode 3 of my lightly buttered KSP Let's Play. First off, I'd like to apologize to everyone for how long it's taken me to get this episode out. I've been moving lately and work has picked up, so it's been harder to record. And also, I had completely recorded an episode a couple weeks ago, and the entire time my FPS was only about 15 frames per second. And so when I watched the video afterwards, it was really, really choppy, and there was just no way I could use it. And then I had more issues with recording with a second attempt I was doing, and it was just so frustrating that I just didn't play for a little while. But then I was just really dying to play, so I decided I'd record it and not do any voiceover until after the fact. So this is actually, I'm doing this voiceover while watching the video that I made about a week ago. Might actually have been 2 weeks ago. It's been a while, and once again, I'm sorry. So, what we're doing today is spinning. Yeah, with FAR, these sometimes have a tendency to flip around, but it does appear as if I'm going to be able to steady the ship. We are taking a Kethane miner to the moon, and we're doing a manned mission. And if you just heard that explosion off in the distance, the four boosters apparently crashed into each other. But yes, we are doing our first manned mission, and this is sped up 4 times in the editor right now, so that's why it looks so weird. Most of the just simple burns like this I have sped up. I don't believe I've really cut anything, just sped up. But we are taking a Kethane miner to the moon, to one of the deposits that the scanning satellite found. And you'll actually see how much I've scanned. I've scanned the entire, well, I've mapped the entire moon with ISA, so we have a complete terrain map. However, with Kethane, it's a lot slower, so I've found a bunch of deposits, and I found one that was nice and equatorial and in a crater, so we're gonna probably head to that one. This is actually going to end up being a 2-part episode, which you will probably have seen from the title. The first part is going to be going to the moon, landing, roving around, and then a little bit of mining, and then the second part will be the return trip. The second part's probably going to be shorter than this, because most of the bulk of most of the interesting things are in this episode. Not to say that the next episode isn't going to be interesting, I just haven't made it yet, so we'll see if we really include it or if I throw it on the end of this episode. All in all, this took about a little over an hour, I think, is how long it ended up taking. The first time I tried to do this, it also took about an hour, although I didn't take a rover that time. This time I'm taking a little rover. Interesting, I think my screen was paused for a moment. So yeah, as you can see, we're about to do our burn, our Munar transfer burn. We still have a lot of fuel left in this lift stage, which we end up using for, honestly, most of our maneuvers. So we're just a little bit away from completing this. And there we go. We have a moon capture. Well, yeah. We have a introduction into the moon's sphere of influence. Moon captures better. I'm just going to call it that. So we are now just going to point in the direction of our plane change. Well, we have to do a plane change, and so we're going to point in the direction that we'll need to face then, speed up time till we are there. I go a little bit over, but at this time scale it's not that bad of a deal. And now we should end up entering the moon sphere of influence roughly equatorial, which is what we want. It's usually simpler to do things in an equatorial orbit. So then you don't have to worry so much about the rotation of the body that you're orbiting. We will actually need to factor rotation in a little bit when landing, and you will see that shortly. But yes, so I kind of wish I was looking at the ship right now so I could talk about that, but we should be switching out soon. I can talk about it anyway. So the ship has 2 miners and 4 LV-909s for thrust and fuel tanks, and then radially mounted Kethane storage. This is the second version of this ship. I actually have already done this mission, like I said before, and that one only used 3 LV-909s, as you can see here. And I didn't bring extra parachutes, so I ended up, when I returned to Kerbin, I had to drop all the Kethane that I had gotten. I feel like this should be sped up, but isn't. Unless it is. I'm really confused as to why I wouldn't have sped this up. There's really not a whole lot going on. Well, we're going to do a burn at our periapsis in order to be fully captured. And then we're going to start looking for landing sites. I already have one in mind at this point. It's the same one that I landed at before. I will end up looking around a little bit because it would be nice to take this rover somewhere interesting. So like a moon arch or the Neil Armstrong Memorial. Unfortunately, the Kethane deposit that I found doesn't actually have anything nearby, and you'll see that later. So we end up just kind of roving around in the crater just for fun. The rover is kind of interesting because I'm not hearing anything right now, but I'm supposed to be. Let me pause this for a moment and see if I can figure this out. So it turns out I actually am hearing those sounds. It's just that I had that track's volume down. So I was hearing them, it was just too quiet to actually hear. So yeah. So yeah, okay, here we have the Kethane map, and this is the location that I'm thinking of landing in. The brighter colored green indicates that there's more Kethane in that deposit. The light green color is less, obviously, and the gray obviously means that there is nothing. So this is Kerbin. Here we go. This is the moon, and I'm looking for some anomalies that might be in that area. The anomalies in the MapSat are things like the moon arches or the Neil Armstrong Memorial, which is that last thing that I pointed at right there. And unfortunately the crater that I'm thinking of landing in is that dark blue circle kind of in the middle of nowhere. So now I'm just kind of looking around like, is there anything even around here? I actually have landed at where I was just looking at, and there's a moon arch there. So if you're looking for a moon arch, right where my cursor is, pretty much there is one. But after looking around, the only things that really seemed plausible were on the other side of the moon or just in that crater. So I end up going with this trajectory that I have planned. And you'll notice I want to land along that hex line that I have scanned, but I have the intersection point past that. And there's two reasons for that. So this is going to be a little bit of a landing tutorial, though not nearly as good as someone like Scott Manley could do. But, so the first reason that you do that is because the body that you're orbiting is still rotating. So by the time we get over there, it will have theoretically rotated so that it's lined up. The other reason that I do it, at least, is because when I'm landing, I have a tendency to kill my horizontal velocity decently quickly. So if I have it so that I'm still pretty high up when I'm killing that velocity, then I will just fall straight back down. So that intersection point will actually end up moving more to the left. So we need to go over a little bit. And you'll notice we're also burning a little bit north, and the reason for that is I don't want to land below that hex line where that bright green is, because that means there's no Kethane there, and that's not really that useful. So I'm trying to land right in the center. And all of these operations, these orbital operations, I'm still just doing with the remnants of the lift stage, so I got pretty lucky there. I do have a small stage in between the lift stage and the main unit that is there just for orbital operations, but I end up using that mostly as my descent. So yeah, I don't want to use up all my fuel, which honestly wouldn't be too bad. We're landing on a Kethane deposit, so I'm going to refuel from that, since the scientists at the Kerbal Space Center have equipped us with a Kethane conversion unit, which we need to test out, and you need Kethane to test it, so here we are. And the scientists at the KSC also would like to have some Kethane samples of their own, and this is an issue that I had when I first ran through this, which I've already mentioned. I had to end up dropping those, so I've added more parachutes this time so that we can hopefully bring the entire upper stage back with us. And you'll have to wait for the second episode for that. But let's just say it doesn't necessarily go exactly as planned, but it's alright. So this lift stage is we finally used up all of that, so we just let it go. It's already set to crash into the moon, but I believe we're going to get more than the 2.2 or so kilometers away that the Unity game engine can keep loaded. So now we are just slowly approaching the surface in this really dark crater, and as you can tell, we are still running 0.20 at this time. When this video was recorded, 0.21 hadn't come out yet, so that gives you an indication of how long it's been since this was recorded, since I'm currently doing this voiceover on Sunday, August 4th, and 0.21 has been out for a while, but I've really only had yesterday and today to mess around with it. So yes, we drop off this now empty little stage that I'm not even entirely sure why I kept. And you'll notice there's a little bit of an issue with the placement of the rover. So I've tested this a little bit on Kerbin, but the rover extends just a little bit past the landing legs, or is like just on the same level, so we're going to actually end up dropping the rover before we land. And this is a two-step process. I could have just hooked it up straight to a decoupler, but I ran into issues with that. The full-size decouplers have a lot of force behind them, and the smaller one wasn't going to be sturdy enough to hold the whole stack together, and so there's a large decoupler, then a strut, like a cubic octagonal strut, I believe, and then a smaller decoupler that then is on another one of those cubic struts, which then that cubic strut is permanently fixed onto the rover. You'll see that later. I had to move it so that it wouldn't be directly in the seat because you can't get into the rover. I'm glad I tested this before coming here because I would have sent it otherwise, and then we wouldn't have actually been able to use this rover at all. So I believe we are about to drop the rover soon. We've killed off all of our horizontal velocity. We're just slowly going down. You want to land... Yes, here we drop the rover. We're a little higher up than I intended. It has a bit of a bounce, but it doesn't seem to have any issues. We accidentally thrust up a little too much. Now we're just gliding above it. And then, for whatever reason, I ended up going in, or pressing C and accidentally going in there. I think I might have been meaning to press X to kill my thrust. Switch to the rover and enable the brakes. You can see that strut right in the center and how the drop mechanism works. Now we're going to decouple this right here, which just results in an explosion. So my previous testing, I had that just right on that other strut, and when I dropped it, it would just destroy the rover. So now we're deploying our solar panels, which are set up in a pseudo 8 times configuration. I believe it's 8 times. Yes. So if you just use 8 times configurations, you'll have solar panels where the ladder is. So I wanted that density, and look, we have in fact landed on the Kethane deposit. When there's Kethane where you're mining, you see these white plumes coming out. But yes, I wanted the density of the 8 times symmetry, but needed to put a ladder there, so I just used, I think, 4 times symmetry, and then 2 times, and then 1 time, and that gave me the effective 8 times. And that there on the side is a little scientific probe that we will be leaving on the moon. And now time for the first steps. Way to go, Pattler. Great steps. Yes. So yes, this is Pattler Kerbin jumping up into the sky, I suppose. Air is not appropriate. First Kerbal to walk on the moon, in our series at least. So he's going to inspect the rover, make sure everything landed okay. Get in, and we will rove around for a little while. Like I said, unfortunately there's nothing really nearby to go check out, but oh well, that doesn't mean we can't have a little bit of fun. Also, I tested this on Kerbin, and it works fine there, and I've had typically not so great of experiences with rovers on the moon. I just stopped there to quick save in case anything happened. So yeah, let's just drive around. As you can see, the wheels are tilted inwards a little bit, or tilted outwards, I should say, I guess. That's just for stability. And the reason I'm switching to docking mode here is when you are in staging mode and you use A and D to turn, part of that turning is because of the torque of the probe body, and you don't really want that. So it's suggested that you use docking mode for vehicles. Something kind of interesting happens later as a result of that. It took me a little while to figure out, but you'll see that. So yeah, here we are, going, just almost north, checking out the giant rocks. This should be sped up. I didn't do such a great job with that, it appears. I could have sworn I sped this up. Perhaps I wanted to have a little bit of real-time roving. So yes, I rove around in 4 times symmetry, 4 times physics warp. Oh yes, here is, I think it's now, when we have our bug, let's say. Not even sure necessarily, yes, right now. You hear the rockets came on? When we switched to map view, the engines popped on, threw it up into the air, and at this point I'm like, what is going on? And we crash. Now, I have a feeling that I'm going to try to, if someone gets stranded somewhere, actually send out a rescue party instead of just terminating their flight, which now in 0.21, if you terminate their flight, it actually effectively kills them. So I'm going to quick load here, because I have no idea what just happened. I never told it to go. At this point, I'm just completely confused. Now, as I'm recording this audio, I actually do know what happened, and we'll figure that out later in this episode, but just to be safe, I shut down all of the engines, because even if the throttle's all the way up, the engines won't do anything. So that shouldn't happen again. So unfortunately, we have to take our rover back out. I guess we don't really have to, but I didn't feel like I'd really gotten to do anything, and at this point I'm like, oh, maybe I could go all the way to the other one, and I'm not able to find the button to show my current location, which, as you can see, we are in the middle of the crater that is not near anything. I should, maybe, in 0.21, land over where the Neil Armstrong Memorial is. However, that's going to be slightly more difficult, because I plan on adding a few more mods. The one in particular that's going to make this difficult is I want to add Ion Cross. Now that is a life support mod, and I might not end up adding that one. I might add a different one. I just noticed my microphone looks like it's probably pretty loud, so I'll have to double check that later, but yes, so it's going to take us a very long time to get to any of those other ones, so we just forget about that idea. Okay, now the speed up is going to happen, so we're at 4 times, now we're at 16. And the music always sounds really hilarious at 4 times sped up sound. So yes, we're driving by all the rocks, getting decently far away. Zooming out just to get an idea. We are now over 2.2 or so kilometers away because the ISA MapSat has disappeared. We're gonna drive through this rock. Yes, and turn back around and head back 16 times again. And as we get in close, yes, it looks to be about 2.2 kilometers is when the other ships load. And apparently when you have a GPS module on a ship that is loaded, every ship has the ability to view the map, which is kind of interesting. So here we are, we're back, we're missing, oh, now we're on 2 wheels. And we land it. Surprisingly, that could have been really bad, and if I had quick loaded that, then I probably just wouldn't take the ship out again. Well, not the ship, but the rover out. So we overshot a little bit, but we can easily drive back over. I liked this rover design. I'm not that great at making them. But this one, it was relatively compact, and it seemed to work pretty well. It was a lot more stable than other ones I've made in the past, so that's for sure. So, pop on the brakes, hop back out, I do believe. Quick save here. That way we don't have to drive around again. Leave seat. And there's Kerbin, standing on top of his rover, and then sort of moonwalk jumping. Well, we are on the moon, so all of our walking is technically moonwalking. And now yes. So now we're going to rename this, because that's an awful name. And I'm really bad at naming things, so the first name I think of is... going to take a while. Moon Rover. Yeah, that's an awful name. Patlers, come on. What's it gonna be? A misspelling of Porsche. Yes, Patlers Porsche is what I end up naming it, because I like alliteration, and it was fun. I enjoyed driving it. I don't think I would drive it for, 20 kilometers, but I think we ended up doing about 6, which wasn't actually too bad. If I needed to go somewhere in it, I could. I definitely would like, if we do anything more permanent here... Oh yes, so, watch the throttle bar. I just noticed this, in-game. So yeah, there. When we switch from docking mode to staging mode, the throttle bar goes up to half. And that must have been what happened before, and apparently, switching to map view does the same. So Kerbin is super excited because he just figured out why his ship randomly got destroyed before. And there's not really anything I can do about that, but, so yeah, so we've been on the moon this long, and we still haven't planted a flag. And before this comes out, I just want to say my friend gave me a flag to put up, and it's this. It's not the most artistically fashionable or whatever. I don't even know what words to use for this. I'm clearly not a design-related person, but my friend made it for me. It seems very Magico13 and spacey, and yeah, I like it. So I wanted to do a manned moon mission purely for the reason of planting a flag. So yes, if you guys have suggestions for things, or things like flags that you want, and I spelled Kethane wrong, and it's bugging me every single time I watch this. But yes, if you have suggestions for mods I should use, or you want to send me a flag that isn't obscene and doesn't contain profanity or anything like that, because we're trying to keep it somewhat family safe. Okay, that's the end of the video. Sorry. Talk to you next time. So yeah, thank you for watching. I will see you all next time.